join me in giving a warm welcome to Atlanta Auxiliary Bishop John Nhán Trấn.
Good evening. It's certainly an honor for me to be able to be here this evening. Father Sean said that it's good to see so many young people here. I don't know how old Father Sean is. Is it in relation to how old you are? But it is certainly an honor for me to be here. Thank you to the Legionnaires family for the opportunity. Part of my priestly life, I had the opportunity to meet certainly the Legionnaires priests. And in fact, I visited their seminary when I was in a seminary. Because at that time, there were some Vietnamese who live in New Orleans area who attended their seminary. And so I had the opportunity to do that. But later on, I had the opportunity to meet other Legionnaires priests in the Archdiocese of New Orleans when I was at a parish in La Place, St. Joan of Arc, as well as the last parish I was at, Mary Queen of Peace in Mandeville. In Mandeville, the Legionnaires priests have a house there just down the street. And I can tell you that I'm always grateful for them because whenever we need help for masses or anything like that, they are always available to help us. So I was so grateful that they were there as they were our neighbors. So. And of course, I had the opportunity to meet in New Orleans the members of the Reverend Christie's family over the years. And I've always have great admirations for them, all that they do in support of the work of the church in that capacity. I grew up in Vietnam, as you have heard, and came to this country at the age of 9 after the fall of Saigon in 1975. Some of you probably wondering why I am this short. It was because I started smoking when I was in second grade. I didn't realize that smoking stunts your growth. But I quit. I don't know how, do you have any smoker left in society these days? Not too many smokers left. But I quit when I was in 4th grade. Because in 4th grade, it was then that we came to this country and we couldn't afford it, so I quit. I'm always grateful for the opportunity to be able to live in this country. There's no better country than the U.S. I know that sometimes we are crazy. We do crazy things in this country, but you know, there's no place like home here in the U.S. I'm always grateful for all those who make life possible for me. Certainly the men, particularly those who died for our freedom in Vietnam, who served in the U.S. military, for all those who risked their lives in helping us to resettle here in the U.S., and all those who have helped us when we came to this country. And even today, every day, I thank the Lord for all those who make my way of life possible. But you know, as part of growing up in a war-torn country, and we unfortunately see that today, what's going on in Israel, in Gaza, in the Ukraine, and with the Soviet Union and so on. we come to realize that anytime when there's war going on, there are a lot of casualty, not just for those in the military, but for civilian. And my family also experienced the casualty. I lost my mother when I was only 2 years old. I lost my oldest brother when he was only in middle school. He stepped on a landmine. My mother was shot and killed. My father was also shot, but he survived, thankfully, to raise the 5 of us, children. Later on, almost 5 years later, my father remarried. And he remarried my stepmom. My stepmom lost her husband because of the war. She also lost 2 of her children due to an accident. My father and my stepmother was married not because they love each other, they barely knew each other, but because of circumstance. My dad needed a wife to take care of the children. My stepmom's parents were the one who arranged the marriage for my stepmom. It's very difficult for us to understand that in the context of married life. But for both of them, because they needed each other in a certain way. For my stepmom, her parents wanted her to remarry. But of course, in a war-torn country like Vietnam at that time, most of the men died fighting the war. So the opportunity for her to remarry would be very slim. And so the marriage took place. And just a few months later, after they got married, the communists took over. My dad at the time was a wealthy landowner, so he was able to take care of our family, and including, of course, now with my stepmom. But then the war ended, the communists took over. My father, who was sentenced to 18 years in concentration camp under the communist regime back in 1954, when the country was divided, made the decision to try to escape. And so we were fortunately able to do that, and we came to this country. And as a kid growing up in New Orleans at the time, I noticed the struggle that they had in married life. And looking back, and even then, I never blamed them. My father's world was completely turned upside down. My stepmom did not want to leave to come with us when we left. No one could blame her, because she never, at that time, no one knew whether or not she would be able to see her loved one again, her family again. But yet her parents said to her, now you're married, you need to go with your family. And so she went. And I can tell you the first 5 to 10 years of their married life in the U.S., it was very difficult for them. But it was also difficult for us as children, because when parents struggle in married life, the children struggle in different ways. I share with you that thought, that story, to remind us that life, and particularly those of you who are married, that it's not always easy. There are times in which you have to carry crosses in life, in married life. But you know, one thing about my parents is this: as difficult as it was for them, the one thing that kept them together was, believe it or not, their prayer life, their faith. Even in the midst of all that, they argue a lot, but yet they managed to be able to pray the rosary together. And which was very surprising to us. But you know, as I look back on their lives, my dad passed away now. My stepmom is in her 80s. That one thing that kept them together, enabled them to overcome the difficulties, their challenges, was their faith, was God. And so, as those of you who are married, you come to realize that in order for you to be able to find happiness and peace in your married life, there's no doubt that if you do not have God as a center of your relationship, then you will never be able to find it. Because as you know, that it is not by coincidence that you are married to one another. It's not by chance. I know sometimes it may be very tempting for you to think about it, or to even ask yourself, how did I wind up marrying this person? What was I thinking? Or you should ask, what was my spouse thinking in marrying me? But you know, your married life together is not by a coincidence. In the mystery of it all, God called you to married life. It is God who called you not only to married life, but to marry the person you married. And that will always be a mystery, as you know. Just like the husband, you're trying to figure out your wife, forget about it. There will always be a mystery to you. I say that because when I was working in the parish for 30 and a half years as a priest, and even now at the chancery, who do I deal with every day? Women. Sometimes I ask them, what do you want for lunch? Oh, it doesn't matter. And then when you make the decision and they come back and say, why did you order that? All kidding aside, I have to say this. Without the women, men, priests, bishop, we are nothing. The reason why I say that is because they are the one who is going to help us get into heaven. They are our crosses. Thank God I'm not married. Because if I were married, I don't know where I would be staying tonight. As you know, that God put you together in the mystery of it all, with the ups and downs and moments of joy and happiness, all that. In the midst of all that, God is with you. And in fact, in order for your married life to grow, I do hope and pray that it is the one person that unites you is the Lord. And if your spouse loves God first, more than love you, then you have a great chance of living the married life as God intended to be. So I do hope and pray that you will continue to help each other to grow in that relationship with the Lord. The more that your spouse loves the Lord, the more your spouse will love you. You know, I don't know how many of you selected the readings from St. Paul. Wives, be subordinate to your husband. Did anybody pick up for your wedding? Some of you? You're crazy. But you know, a lot of couples scared of that verse. They're scared of that verse because they did not complete the whole story. Because wife, be subordinate to your husband. And what did St. Paul said? Husband, what? Love your wife, your spouse, as what? Christ loved his church. That has to go together. And that's the truth of it. Your wife, husband, your wife will love you if you are able to show her that you love God more than you love her. Because it is in loving God that you are willing to die for someone else. And so continues to help each other to grow in that relationship with the Lord. If you do not have a time for prayer together now in your married life, I would encourage you to begin doing so. My mom and dad had a very difficult marriage. But the one thing that kept them together, despite the time, sometime I tell them after I became a priest, I said, you know, if the two of you get a divorce, I can get an annulment for you guys. There is enough ground for you to get an annulment. But I tell you, they continue to pray. I admire them for that. Despite all the difficulties, something that I would never be able to understand, those crosses they had to bear. But yet, because of their relationship with the Lord, they pray together. They gather us as children every night to pray together. And so, my brothers and sisters, thank you for your married life. It is in your married life that we come to see God's love for us, because Jesus loved us enough to die on the cross for us. And every day that you die for each other, because the Lord asked of you to do so. And so for us as priests and religious, consecrated women, for us, thank you for that great example. And to know that and be assured of our prayer for you and your family. Thank you for all that you do, not only for the Legionnaires community, but in doing what you're doing tonight, you are serving not just a particular community, but you are serving the church. And so we are forever grateful. Thank you.